What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here at the distance. Got a video for you guys. This is a post-fight video to Ricky Burns versus Michael Katsidis. That was a lightweight bout, I believe, for the WBO lightweight championship. Put together both, one on the other side, former super featherweight champion Ricky Burns against former interim lightweight champion Michael Katsidis. Pretty much it was a good bout for Ricky Burns. Ricky Burns used his speed, height to control the range as an advantage over Michael Katsidis, who was the shorter fighter. And late as the fight progressed, Michael Katsidis began to kind of try to take away the height advantage from Ricky Burns. But in the first 3 rounds of the fight, Ricky Burns pretty much used his height and reach to his advantage. He stood tall, controlled the range using his jab. And when Katsidis tried to walk in, he threw combinations and used his mobility to position himself into other parts of the ring, to where Katsidis would have to turn his whole entire body, and pretty much Burns would just as soon as he turned, Burns would just throw combinations at him and throw from specific angles. He was using parameters of the ring, to kind of escape the pressure of Michael Katsidis. In the early rounds of the fight, he didn't let Katsidis cut the ring off from him, and when pretty much as soon as he got on the ropes, he would early in the fight he would catch Katsidis with counters, like with a counter straight left, or a counter right hook, and then he would move as soon as his back would touch the ropes, or as soon as Katsidis would stop throwing. So he wasn't throwing at a high volume, but he was pretty much controlling the tempo and the pace of the fight, using his jab on the outside, using mobility in the center of the ring. He didn't give Katsidis a fight in the center of the ring early in the fight, because he would tie Katsidis up, so he didn't get any type of momentum in the early goings of the fight. And as soon as he got on the ropes, later on in the fight, he just shelled up and covered up, tucked his chin, tucked his elbows in, and let Katsidis throw. So in the 4th round, Katsidis fought with a little more urgency in the 4th round. Though I did give the round to Burns, I thought Katsidis fought with a little more urgency and began to close the gap a little bit more in that round. He wasn't coming in using the jab. He was kind of using upper body movement and trying to get inside. Had kind of, his arms were quite tight, and he continued to come forward and press Ricky Burns. But Ricky Burns is coming in. He's landing the cleaner shots in that round. So I gave the round to Burns. In round 5, Burns landed cleaner shots, but Katsidis outworked him. His work rate was very intense in that round. So with the intense work rate that he had in that, and also it was kind of one of those rounds where it was kind of that benefit of the doubt type round, to where you want to give Katsidis a round and you're looking for a round to give him, so you just give him the round. Though Burns did effective work on the outside, Katsidis continued to cut him off and pressure him, and kind of made Burns fight his kind of fight. So in round 5 I gave the Katsidis. In round 6 I gave that round to Burns, because he went back to controlling the pace of the fight, controlling the tempo. But there were moments where Katsidis would kind of try to come inside and cut him off, but he used his range, controlled the range again, and hit Katsidis with some pretty good counters. In round 7, the binding on Burns' tape began to come off, and it was something that was ongoing for the rest of the fight. Even in round 12, I think it was around 12 where the binding just came off horribly. It was, one of around 12 or 10. It was in later stages of the fight where the binding just came off horribly. And Katsidis just came, like, right after the binding off the tape, when they had to put more tape on his arms, on the gloves, on his wrist, Katsidis just came in and, just outworked him. He outworked him, and it seems as if round 7, Burns was kind of taking that round off. But, pretty much, that was pretty much a Katsidis round just based on his work rate. Round 8 was a close round. I gave the Katsidis, but it's a round that you could argue for either one, because Ricky Burns had his moments where he was controlling the fight, and he did land the cleaner blows in the fight. But I think that what was more telling was the pressure of Katsidis. Katsidis had a lot applied a lot of pressure to him. Though also you could have scored 8, possibly a 10-10, because neither one of them really dominated each other in the round. It was a very close round. So after that round, round nine, Burns round, there was moments to where Katsidis would get in close, but Burns would kind of get out of the pressure because he would turn his body, and like I said, use the ring and the parameters of the ring to where he used the corners to where he got around Katsidis and got Katsidis to kind of try to change position again, and he would start throwing every time Katsidis would change position. He would, and I think another thing that was pretty telling in the fight was Burns' mobility with his feet. He has fast, his feet were much faster than Katsidis, and Katsidis had to get set. And as Katsidis had to get set, Burns was able to move and catch Katsidis. And round 10 pretty much did give it to Katsidis. I gave it to Katsidis just on work rate. He did have a solid work rate in the fight, and but the rest of the fight I gave to Burns. Though 12 was a close round that you could have given to Katsidis, I thought Burns was catching them with the cleaner, effective shots. And I'm one of the people, I like clean, effective shots, and I like work rate, the work rate of a fighter. But pretty much I think that round 12 could have gone either way, but round 11 Burns came out. He fought with a little more urgency in that round, even though he was probably comfortable on the cards either way. But it was a strong finish for Burns, even though both of them were going at it in that last round, and Katsidis was going for that knockout late in the fight. And you could tell even after that closing bell, Katsidis was still fighting with a lot of urgency. So I did have it being a Ricky Burns fight. Ricky Burns won the fight. Pretty much he outboxed him. He outboxed him. He, like I said, used his range, used his jab, tied him up. Pretty much when he was on the ropes, he stood with a tight guard, and his guard looked a lot stronger at 135 than compared to at 130. He looked a lot stronger. He was more active. Let his hands go. Pretty much used angles, and pretty much I think pretty much the advantage was his boxing ability. His boxing ability was much better. We all knew that his technique is better, but a lot of people, including myself, doubted whether or not he could last against a tough, relentless fighter like Michael Katsidis. And Michael Katsidis was relentless in this fight. He was relentless, but he wasn't landing. I don't know what the fuck that was, but he wasn't landing. Solid. Pretty much solid shots. A lot of the shots that he was throwing was missing, while Burns shots were landing, and he was landing clean and countering them, and getting and making Katsidis try to change position in the fight. So overall, hats off to Ricky Burns. Great fight for him. Katsidis, I think, has to really second guess his next move, whether it be in boxing, whether it be outside of boxing, because at this point of his career, he's been in a lot of wars. Graham Earl, Yoel Casamayor, Juan Manuel Marquez, fights such as that he's been in over the last few years. I think he really needs to second guess his next career move, whether it be in boxing, whether it not be in boxing. Personally, I think that Katsidis could probably still compete in boxing, but I think he could probably still compete for maybe a good year or two. But I just don't, now, in this year he had, in his last 4 fights, he's lost 3 out of his last 4. So I really think he needs to second guess his next career move, especially in this sport. Whether, and the thing is, Katsidis is a warrior, and we all know that. But I just don't think that I don't think he should really continue on, his career. In this fight, he was swelling up. I believe there is scar tissue in his face, more than likely. So we'll see what happens in the coming months. Ricky Burns, again, we'll see what happens in the coming months. I think he proved in this fight that he's not really a domestic fighter. I think that he needs to venture out, possibly face a Robert Guerrero or somebody else another top fighter at 135, Kevin Mitchell, whoever. So anyway, peeps, I'm running out of time. That was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.